In August of 1990, the Prime Minister of Italy stood before the Italian Senate and admitted something his own government had denied for over 30 years, even when he himself had been asked about it directly under oath back in 1974. There was a secret army. It had existed inside Italy since 1956. It was armed, trained, and funded with help from the CIA, and it operated under the direct coordination of NATO itself, completely outside the knowledge of Italy's own elected parliament. Its code name was Gladio, the sword. And within weeks of that confession, it became clear this wasn't just an Italian secret, it was a European one. Before I go further into this, I want to ask something of you directly. This channel only exists because people decide it's worth sticking around for. If you've made it this far and you're finding value in what we do here, hitting subscribe genuinely matters. It's the clearest signal I get that stories like this are worth continuing to dig up. And if you're already subscribed, thank you, sincerely. You're the reason this channel keeps going. Okay, let's get into what Gladio actually was and where it went. To understand why Gladio existed at all, you have to go back to the earliest, most paranoid years of the Cold War. In the early 1950s, Western intelligence agencies genuinely believed a Soviet invasion of Western Europe was a real and immediate possibility. If Soviet tanks rolled across the continent, NATO wanted something already in place before the first shot was fired. Networks of trained civilians hidden inside the countries most likely to be overrun, ready to gather intelligence, sabotage enemy infrastructure, open escape routes, and organize armed resistance from within occupied territory. These were called stay-behind armies. The CIA financed and trained them. Western European military intelligence agencies recruited and managed them locally, and a dedicated NATO committee coordinated the entire network across the continent. Weapons, explosives, and radio equipment were secretly buried in hidden caches. Arms dumps positioned across the countryside ready to be dug up the moment they were needed. Italy's network was codenamed Gladio, but it wasn't the only one. Once the truth started coming out, investigators discovered nearly identical secret armies operating under different code names in Belgium, France, Germany, Switzerland, and other NATO member states. An entire continent quietly wired for a war that, as it turned out, never actually came. What's confirmed beyond any real dispute is straightforward, and it comes directly from Italy's own declassified military intelligence documents. A 1959 report from Italy's CFAR intelligence service, titled plainly The Special Forces of CFAR and Operation Gladio, laid out the network structure, its NATO backing, and its CIA training in explicit detail. For over 3 decades, every Italian government official who was asked about Gladio, including Andreotti himself, years before his eventual confession, either denied its existence outright or declined to answer. It was, by design, entirely outside the reach of Italy's own democratic institutions. Elected officials, without the proper security clearance, had no visibility into it whatsoever. Here's where the story becomes significantly more contested, and where historians genuinely disagree. During Italy's so-called years of lead, between 1968 and 1982, the country experienced a staggering wave of political violence. More than 14,000 attacks, bombings, and assassinations carried out by both far-left and far-right extremist groups. Some investigators and historians, most prominently the Swiss researcher Daniela Ganser, have argued that elements connected to the Gladio network didn't simply wait passively for a Soviet invasion. They actively participated in what became known as a strategy of tension, allegedly working alongside far-right extremist groups to carry out bombings that were then falsely blamed on leftist organizations, with the broader political goal of preventing Italy's Communist Party from gaining power at the ballot box. It's important to be direct about where the evidence actually stands. A Pateano car bombing investigation in the 1980s, led by Italian judge Felice Casson, did uncover documented links between right-wing extremists, military-grade explosives traced to Gladio weapons caches, and the broader stay-behind network. This connection is genuinely well documented. However, many historians have pushed back hard against the idea that this represented official, coordinated NATO or CIA policy. Critics argue the wider strategy of tension theory, especially outside of Italy, often relies more heavily on secondary journalism and witness testimony than on hard archival proof of centralized direction from Washington or NATO headquarters itself. In other words, the secret army itself, its NATO and CIA backing, and its existence across multiple countries. None of that is seriously disputed anymore. Whether it was formally weaponized as a tool of domestic political manipulation is where genuine, unresolved historical debate still exists today. What's not in dispute is what happened after Andreotti's confession. The revelation triggered a continent-wide scandal. Investigations opened in Belgium, France, and beyond. The Italian Senate concluded that Gladio had operated entirely beyond democratic oversight and ordered it formally dissolved. Other European governments, caught off guard, scrambled to either confirm or deny their own versions of the network. Several, including Portugal's own defense minister, initially claimed to have no knowledge of it whatsoever, only for evidence to later suggest otherwise. The scandal that should have dominated European headlines for months was, in a strange twist of timing, largely overshadowed within weeks by the outbreak of the Gulf War in August 1990, and much of the deepest research into exactly how far these networks extended has continued in fits and starts for decades since, slowed constantly by limited access to classified archives that in some countries remain sealed to this day. For nearly 40 years, an armed NATO-coordinated network existed inside the borders of some of the world's most established democracies, entirely unknown to the elected governments, meant to represent those countries' citizens. The invasion it was built to resist never happened, but the questions it left behind never really went away either, about how much of a democracy's own security apparatus can operate completely outside its knowledge, and how long something like that can stay buried before the truth eventually finds its way out anyway. If this is the kind of story you come here for, the operations government spent decades denying before the truth finally surfaced, this channel has more like it. We've covered the CIA's secret Olympic recruitment program, the Cold War tunnel that was betrayed before it even began, and the current crisis over Greenland that's already testing NATO's limits in ways not seen since the Cold War itself. If any of that sounds like your kind of thing, it's all right here on the channel. And if you want to see this channel keep finding stories like this one, subscribing is genuinely the biggest thing that helps. It's free, it takes a second, and it directly decides whether this keeps going. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next one.